I went about it the okay way. You can go about it an even better way should you choose. So some of the stuff in here.
If these were the results of him doing it okay, I'd hate to imagine if he did it wrong. Coach Greg, in today's video, Mike Israetel is going to try to convince you not to take steroids by convincing you to take steroids. What? You'll find out in a minute.
But I can think of a few reasons why it's not hypocrisy based on how I'm going to present to you the hopefully somewhat convincing argument that maybe you should reconsider steroid use if you're thinking about it.
And so I agree with Mike. He's not a hypocrite, despite the fact that he used and abused performance-enhancing drugs. It's just like me. And so just because you've taken something doesn't mean you can't tell others not to. For example, Togi. He took Adderall laced with coke, ended up in the hospital. And so if Togi then makes a video saying you shouldn't do drugs, you can't say, oh, you're a hypocrite because you used them. Perhaps he used them and learned from his poor decisions.
I fully accede to the reality that I paid and am paying at all times the costs of my prior relatively, I would say, impressive steroid use.
I like how he says prior steroid use, as if he's natural right now. Remember, make no mistake, Mike Israetel is still on performance-enhancing drugs.
There are a few ways you can go about doing drugs. I went about it the okay way. You can go about it an even better way should you choose. Some of the stuff in here.
If these were the results of him doing it okay, I'd hate to imagine if he did it wrong. Remember, all he feels is rage.
So let's go through 2 reasons to use steroids and find out if you're one of them. And if you're not, you probably shouldn't be using steroids.
And so Mike Israetel presents 2 situations which you should use steroids. The other situations, I'm assuming you shouldn't. And so let's see. What does Mike say? Do you qualify, or is Mike just coping?
You're interested in becoming an IFBB professional bodybuilder or a professional powerlifter, strongman, etc.
And so Mike says, if you're interested in becoming an IFBB pro, or basically a professional, then you should probably be using steroids if you've been training for 10 years and you're over the age of 25. Now, I do like the fact that he says you should be very experienced and more mature, older, 10 years of training and over 25. That to me makes sense. But what I don't like is saying you plan on competing, you want to be an IFBB pro. Just because you want to be a pro, just because you want to compete, doesn't mean you should be taking steroids. I competed in 42 shows natural first. If I'd listened to Mike's advice, I would have started taking steroids a lot sooner. And why do you need them? As long as you're making gains, as long as you're making progress, why should you be taking steroids? And to say, well, I plan on going to a competition, other people are using steroids, and so I should be using them. Then for the same account, you could say anyone over 25 who's been playing sports for 10 years should use steroids to help them in their own sport. Because after all, steroids help you become a better athlete, do they not? And so if you're a basketball player, football player, tennis player, hockey player, whatever, if you take steroids, you're probably going to be a little bit better. And so should y'all just start taking steroids, anyone who likes sports? I like sports, and so I want to take steroids. That's the same thing. Why is it that bodybuilding should have special circumstances? Last I checked, no one's getting rich being a bodybuilder. Unless, of course, you're Chris Bumstead or one of the best bodybuilders in the world. No one's making money from doing bodybuilding.
You're ready to have a medical staff and coach monitor your health constantly.
Many people are thinking, oh, but there's a doctor monitoring you. They're checking out your blood pressure. You're taking ancillary drugs. It's called polypharmacy. Just because you're taking a cocktail of drugs to lower your blood pressure, your cholesterol, that you're taking this drug and that drug in order to lower your risk factors, doesn't make it healthy. I can think of, and I'm not going to name any names, IFBB pros who died who had famous coaches, and how did that work out for them? They're no longer with us. They had a coach, they were being monitored, but they're no longer with us.
There's another reason why you could use steroids. You're in your 30s or later.
And so in reason number 2, we essentially eliminated everyone. If you listen to this entire list, you're in your 30s, you've been training drug-free for over a decade. Everything you do is perfect. Your diet, you got Coach Greg's cookbook, you've got all his training books, you're perfect. and you still want to make progress, and you've promised yourself that you're only going to go on small doses. Sounds like Alex Eubank saying, I'm only going to go on HRT because the doctor prescribed it. I need it. Bruh. And you're committed to the healthy lifestyle, getting monitored by doctors, and using a host of other drugs. How many people can answer yes to all of that? I'm perhaps one of the very few only ones who would actually qualify to this list. And even if you qualify, you still shouldn't do it. Just because you want all these things doesn't mean you need to take steroids. Just because your gains have slowed down, just because you're in your 30s, doesn't mean you need to start taking steroids. Why are we trying to take years off our life because our bench press isn't going up? Can't we pivot, perhaps try something else? Do we really need to focus our entire life's identity on the fact that we're currently building muscle? There's going to come a time in everyone's life, no matter how many steroids you're taking, HRT or not, where the gains are going to go down. Last I checked, unless you're Mike O'Hearn, who, let me point out, is in fact 100% natural. He's the only human being that can do this, but we cannot confirm that he's not from Krypton. We don't know this. And so just because you're going on a decline doesn't mean you need to take something that's going to slowly age you, going to decrease your life expectancy and so on, just because your gains are slowing down. It's part of getting older. It's part of aging. Remember, I've had to go through this. I'm pushing 50. Yeah, pushing close to 50 keys of terkestrone across the border. But even with terkestrone, eventually the gains are going to go down. And so yes, I'm taking terkestrone. I'm taking GO2 Max. I'm trying to extend the gains as much as possible. Interested in terkestrone, code Greg, 15% off, money back guarantee, and on top of that, $20 gift card. But you all know that.
Also, like the IFBB Pro or person who wants to be an IFB Pro, you're ready to have a medical staff on hand and a coach to monitor your health.
I don't know why everyone thinks, well, I want to compete, so I need to take steroids. You don't need to take steroids to compete. You might need to take them to win the Mr. Olympia, but you can, of course, improve and compete as a natural while being natural. Case in point. I competed 42 times natural. I won many of these competitions, even against people who are on steroids. But even if I lost them all, are you not competing against yourself? Are you not doing everything on your own and you show up on stage and you do your best? And so if having an improper tan, could you not win a pro card? Sorry, Mike, if you had a tan, you're clearly an IPB pro. And so a guy like Hussein Farhat, should he at 25 start taking steroids? Well, he has an amazing physique. If he took steroids, it would be even more amazing. And so should he take them? I don't think so. What's wrong with just being an amazing natural athlete? Not having to force yourself to compete as an IFBB pro. Did he not compete? Did he not have a good time? Last I checked, 7 medals. It's all right. He only won 2 of them, 2 golds. And if he was on steroids, of course he would do better. But why does that matter? Why must we win? Why do we have to get first place in order for something to be fun? Last I checked, I'm not going to be racing in the Tour de France at the age of 49, but I still race bikes. Am I going to win every race? Of course not. Do I need to? No. And so I'm 49, I'm getting older. If anything, every year probably going to get slower. Should I then be on EPO so that I can then race faster? Or should I not accept that, hey, I'm doing for a guy who's 49. I'm going to do my best. And so that young guy who has no aspirations of competing, who's embarrassed to take his shirt off, his goal in life would be able to go to the beach, take his shirt off, and not have anyone stare. He just wants to be normal, to look average. That person has just as much motivation or reason to want to take steroids as the person who wants an IFBB Pro card. Yeah, you want a pro card. Yeah, he wants to look good on the beach. You both have a reason. Does that mean either of you should be doing it? I don't think so. But just saying, oh, well, he has a reason he wants to compete in bodybuilding. That guy shouldn't take it because he's 6 foot tall and 140 pounds. They both want to be better. Same reason to take it, same reason to avoid it. And so one thing that Mike doesn't point out that's perhaps one of the most important reasons, it's legal. Have you ever considered that? Option 1, it's breaking the law. Option 2, not breaking the law. Probably shouldn't break the law. Now, in some countries, it's going to be okay. For example, in Canada, it's legal to use steroids, but you can't sell them. I would know about that. In the United States, for the most part, at least I think, you probably can't use steroids unless, of course, it's prescribed by a doctor.
Taking steroids, a lot of other stuff comes along with that. You have to be ready to live that life.
And so what's interesting among all this is watching him describe the reasons to not take steroids, the downsides. For example, cardiovascular deaths like a heart attack, longevity costs, the cosmetics risks like your hair loss, the acne, gynecomastia, and so on. The fact that you're going to age quicker, you're going to look older. He himself says people think he's in his 50s, but he's only 40.
Thank you, Greg.
And that if you ever come off the steroids, you're going to lose a lot of those gains. You're going to feel like garbage, like dog shit. And so it's shocking to me that he makes this video, but he can't take his own advice. That's what I find the most interesting about this, because the information, to me, it all makes sense. But the logic behind it, that's where it goes sour. And so I do believe he's in fact coping. He wants an IFBB Pro card. He wants to compete. He took steroids because he wanted to bodybuild. And so in his own mind, if you also want to bodybuild, if you want to follow in his footsteps and do what he wanted to do, well, then you get the pass. But if somebody else doesn't want to compete, perhaps they don't have the great genetics for getting a tan. They're like, why bother? I'll never win a pro card. I won't get a proper tan.
Because at the end of the day, the only thing that matters in life is having a tan.
They just want to look better, to take their shirt off on the beach, perhaps to have their wife or girlfriend compliment them once in a while, or perhaps to attract a mate. They're too skinny. They're too skinny fat. They just want to look better. How is that any different than the guy who simply wants the pro card?
And all of a sudden you have to come off of steroids or come down in dose. That is a bit of a headache of a process in many cases.
Now that Mike's in his 40s and his IFBB pro card aspirations should be out the window, he can't get the proper tan. I mean, it has nothing to do with the fact that he can't diet or get lean enough, that he can't willpower himself to following a diet, that he can't follow the diet in my cookbook. Why can't he go off? And so if you're contemplating doing steroids, think, this man has a PhD. He's saying if you want a pro card, then you could take steroids. Clearly he has no chance, but yet he's still on them. And so what does that tell you? It tells you of the addictive nature of the steroids that you're wanting to take or that you're already taking. And so if you're thinking about taking steroids, think twice. You all know what it's done to Mike Isertel. Do I need to explain it yet again? We've seen him describe the brain fog, the fact that he's getting dumber, that he can't experience basic human emotions, that he's so upset a guy from Bangladesh in the comment section could disturb him.
Man, it'd be cool to like fight a dog with just your hand.
He's contemplating hitting people in the legs with baseball bats and doing things to them that medical science couldn't put them back together again. Do you want that?
Except the mechanisms that steroids exact in fat burning are actually quite small, and there's a little bit of contention in the literature if they actually do happen at all or not.
I think that goes without saying. Look at Mike Isertel's physique himself. If steroids got you lean, exhibit A. Clearly, it doesn't work. And to the same extent, remember when Mike was interviewed by Omar Yusuf and he says, the reason I compete is because I want to show that the RP strength, it works so well and that my methods make sense. I want to prove it by winning my pro card. Well, it proved that it didn't work. And so taking steroids just doesn't make you shredded, because if they did, a man with a PhD on steroids, would he not be able to get shredded once in his entire life?
Most people think steroids make you shredded. And the reality is, like, that's what dieting and cardio and growth hormone does, to be completely frank.
Of which he's on all of them and still couldn't get lean, I might add. And in comparison, when I was natural, I had a better physique than he did. And so do you really think that just by taking growth hormone, steroids, SARMs, whatever, that you're going to have an outstanding physique? I don't think so.
Someday, maybe someday soon, we'll have super cool drugs that only help with muscle growth and have almost no side effects.
They're here now. Turkesterone and GO2 Max, they are in fact amazing supplements. This more for endurance, this more for strength, aggression, putting on more muscle. Now, I'm not saying it's stronger than Tren. It's not as strong as testosterone or Tren. It's not going to boost your testosterone levels, but it is going to get you more gains than last time. We have a number of people use this. Many people are swearing by it. And in case you're a non-responder, somebody who doesn't feel it. Remember, 50% of people who use creatine report that they didn't notice doing anything. In case you're one of those people, you have a money-back guarantee. And on top of that, you get a $20 gift card for saying thank you. And so you have nothing to lose. Click the link in the description, code Greg, 15% off.
You see all these amazing steroid transformation stories on TikTok and shit. Folks only post their best stories almost as a rule.
And so that's a great point. What you see on social media, the transformations using steroids and so on, you're seeing the best of the best of the best, the top 1% of the top 1%. And so the actual transformation on steroids, it's actually underwhelming. Most of you are just seeing, wow, he took steroids, he's an IPB pro, that's what I want. But what you don't see is he took steroids, he only put on 8 pounds of muscle, got acne, lost his hair, then went off the steroids and felt like garbage, couldn't get an erection, and now he's sad. You don't see those stories.
Folks, this has been me putting mine on my adult male role model hat.
And so thanks for Mike Israetel for putting on his adult role model head, and hopefully one day he can take his own advice.
Thank you, Greg.
I've already been through this. I've already done all these things. I abused the steroids. Now I'm on HRT prescribed by my doctor. And so please, before you take steroids, be sure to think twice. And never, ever break the law and only use performance-enhancing drugs with the advice and consent from your own doctor. Subscribe, click the bell button, comment to boost the algorithm, like the video if you like it. Don't forget to watch one of those 2 bloops. And until next time, I am out.